Welcome to the second annual Women's Empowerment Symposium. We have an incredible 3 days of programming in store for you. The Rose Bowl Institute's Women's Empowerment Symposium would not have been made possible if it wasn't for the key support of our donors who have generously contributed to ensure the success of these next 3 days. Thank you, Carolyn Miller, Mark Schuster and family, the Larry and Helen Hogue Foundation, the Confidence Foundation, and the Pittsburgh Foundation for your incredible support. Specifically, we would like to thank Carolyn Miller, as well as Mark Schuster and family, as our founding donors to the Rose Bowl Institute, and for supporting our vision to reach people in their communities throughout the country and around the world. Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Mark. We couldn't have done it without you. Just a few things before we get started. I know you are all zoomed out and have been spending so much time in front of your screens, but I promise you, today is worth it. Be sure to use our chat, as we will have some of our panelists from each session on there to answer your questions live. We understand the importance of mental and physical health. Each day we're going to be bringing you 5-minute tips on how to take care of yourself inside and out. Today we're going to be doing 5-minute desk yoga. We know it's so difficult to be behind the desk and screen every day. When sharing on social media today, be sure to use hashtag Women's Empowerment Symposium. You might just find yourself up on our stream. And finally, we ask that you complete a brief survey at the completion of each day. By completing this survey, you will then become eligible for one of our $2,500 scholarships. Thank you so much again for joining us today. I'm going to kick it off to our welcome keynote, Ann Myers Drysdale. Let's have a great day.
Welcome everybody, day 1 of the Rose Bowl Institute Women's Empowerment Symposium. I'm Ann Myers Drysdale and I'm your first day moderator. We can't thank you enough, not only for being here, we're so excited because you are going to be thrilled and really happy listening to these women that we have on the panel. It's going to be fun to listen to, you're going to be inspired, you're going to be motivated and empowered. So we can't wait to get started. These women today have truly shown what it takes to reshape the future, their future in a society that was continuously telling them otherwise. In our first panel, we are going to discuss the importance of ethics and character in life and in leadership as it relates to the personal success as a woman. Each one of these incredible women take the sports values from the field of everyday life. Our panelists today will provide insight into the struggles that they face and still face today on a day-to-day relationship as women. We will hear how they rise above these challenges and biased views. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and I'd like to welcome and introduce the panelists for today's discussion. Julie Foudy, retired soccer midfielder and sometimes rugby player, and two-time FIFA Women's World Cup champion and Olympic gold medalist, World National Soccer Hall of Fame, and now an ESPN broadcaster and an author. Dr. Jen Welter, a pioneer in her own right. Dr. Jen Welter is the first female coach in the NFL. She first served as a linebacker coach for the Arizona Cardinals, and this was only after she was the first woman to play running back in a men's professional league. Caitlin Ohashi. The world fell in love with Caitlin over her perfect score floor routine that went viral last year as a UCLA Bruins star gymnast. And Jessica Mendoza, Olympic gold and silver medalist in softball and trailblazer. Jessica joined ESPN, becoming the first woman to serve as an analyst for nationally televised Major League Baseball games. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Let's kick things off, yeah, with some questions for all of you. So we get to respond from your own experiences and perspective, and feel free to jump in, anybody hears anything they want to. So first, Julie, I'll start with you. So what does sportsmanship mean to you?
Did you say me, Annie? You said Julie?
Julie, you're the only Julie there.
Okay.
Failing. She wasn't listening.
Clean out my ears. What does sportsmanship mean to me? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Sportsmanship is respect, it's character, it's honoring the game. It's honoring teammates. It's honoring the opponent, which is sometimes very hard to do when you lose, as we did to Norway multiple times over the years in every Olympics or World Cup. But it's actually something that I talk a ton about, because I think it also shapes who you are as an individual. If you have good sportsmanship, if you are showing good sportsmanship, then it's a life lesson, right? It's about character, it's about respect, it's about honor, and all these things that are important to us as human beings and as leaders in our communities. And so it's something I think we don't talk enough about, honestly, with young kids today. Right? We talk about wins and losses and being competitive, but we don't talk about the importance of honoring teammates and opponents in the process of all of that.
Yeah, and Jen, just to kind of follow up on that for you, I mean, being in football, which is a men's sport, obviously, that you've been involved with a long time, and, you know, sportsmanship, is it different for men and women?
You know, I think some things are different maybe in how it's expressed, but the foundation is very much the same. For me, it's like the biggest thing is the family, right? Like that we see within each other. And like, that's like hopping on the call today. I'm like, oh, it's family, right? Like we get a family call. And then that family has a value system that it's like our code. This is how we're gonna go about it. This is what we do. This is how we move. Everybody's included that. We all have different jobs and different roles in that, but we take that very, very seriously. It's like who we are, it's how we move, and we know that we're all on the same page. And then there's really an honor in those you're competing against too, right? It's really important because especially in a sport like football, a full combat sport, there's a difference between like making a tackle and like trying to end someone's career, and everybody knows who those people are, and we can't put on our game if we don't have competitors. So it's like this love-hate thing of like, there are people that you love going against because they're going to bring the best out of you, and yet at the same time you kind of give them a side eye too because they make it really hard and you want to win. But you know that sportsmanship is that as good as we are together, as great as we are as what we do, we need that competitor to bring it out of us. So it's really like this honor in battle. And I think having that love and respect that we're all in a fight together, even if we're competing against each other, is really one of the greatest expressions of sportsmanship you can have. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that element of it. But I've seen it now in men and I've seen it in women, and we all leave and we say, that's football family, and that's the people that you've competed with and against.
Well, and to follow up on that, Jessica, as far as not just the sportsmanship, but do you think also, and I'm a part of this, and maybe none of you are, I don't know, Title IX when it first started, but like Jen following up on that in the sense of how women are competing more so than maybe 40 years ago before Title IX, that they didn't have the opportunity to compete on a high level through college and then professional sports.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunities are there. And like you got to see it to be it. So you see women on TV. And when you ask that question, I think like, when I think competing, I think of like Serena Williams fist pump, like I'm taking you down. And I'm sorry, that's not like, I guess the sportsmanship maybe of like, but it's also that competitiveness that you want to see more of, because for so long, I felt like as a young girl, sportsmanship for females was different for sportsmanship for males. Like being a good female athlete was, I'm just happy to be here. I'm going to have a smile on my face. Aren't we cute and nice and sweet? But to have that like, yeah, like throw down the softball and be like, bring it. Like that's part of sportsmanship in my opinion too, because we're competing. I respect you. I'm not throwing the ball at you. I'm throwing it into the ground. But I'm letting you know, like I'm here to compete. And that to me gives me so much more relief to know that young girls can see what the female athlete looks like in her entirety, that it's not just one box that we're placed in, is the cute, like very happy to be here versus like, you know what, sometimes I'm going to get mad. Sometimes I'm going to have tears. Sometimes, yeah, I'll be happy. But at the end of the day, I'm here to compete. And that image is going to look different for every female, just like it does for every male athlete. So I love that we see more of that now. So a young girl can see herself and what a female athlete looks like.
Yeah, and Caitlin, to follow up on that, as far as, Jessica talking about competing and going out there and doing your best, obviously, you're in an individual sport, and I've seen you compete so many times at UCLA and for Coach Val, but talk about your sport in the sense of the sportsmanship, because you guys band together so much. I mean, I love how everybody cheers for each other, whether you're on the floor, or you're on the beam, or it's so inspiring to see you guys support each other. But there's a sportsmanship there too.
Yeah. It's funny because before college, I did not know what sportsmanship was at all. So it was super individualized, especially during my elite career. I remember cheering for Simone Biles one time when we were competing, and I got yelled at because I wasn't supposed to be cheering. So coming from that to then college, where it was like we were forced to cheer for each other in the beginning because we didn't know how to. It was like, what is this? Am I not going to get yelled at? So it was really cool to see our whole team come together in a moment and really love each other and thrive off of that, because 2018 championships, we were in like last place and we weren't going to win until we came together as a team. And we want our teammates to do well because it isn't about us anymore. So yeah, we're trying to get into the 6 spots that are available, but if we know that our teammate is going to do better than us, by all means, it's for them. And so we want to be there for each other and every single person. Get that competitiveness within that, because we're pushing each other to get that 6th spot. So it's iron sharpening iron.
And you're in a sport that people expect you to be perfect.
It kind of allowed us to have room to, make mistakes and learn from them. And I think that's the biggest thing in any sport, is like learning and getting better. And even in life, we have that leeway to make some mistakes and grow from them. And so I used to always tell myself during competitions, I have room for a fall. And so then I didn't have to be that quote unquote perfect gymnast. And even when we did get the perfect 10, my teammate Kyla Ross was one of the best people that I could ever ask to train with, because she was always getting perfect 10s, and she'd come back and be like, this is what I need to work on. This is what I could get better. And so that was a perfect role model for me to train along with, because it's like, all right, a perfect 10 doesn't mean it was perfect. There's always room to improve, and that quote unquote perfect doesn't exist.
Yeah, especially in gymnastics, but in all our sports, all of us are imperfect. But Jessica, talk about the values of sportsmanship and how it's impacted your career.
I think the one thing that stands out to me when I think of sportsmanship is it's that sport is bigger than you. There's an entire, whether you play a team sport, individual sport, there's a history, there's a tradition, there's so much behind the individual. And I think it's such a great reminder, because we all get caught up in our own individual goals, things that you want to do. And it's helped me in my career now of knowing, like, as a female in a male dominated space, that this isn't about me. And it's hard because it is you. You are the one that's in front of the camera and doing the work, and whether you're up to bat, whatever it is you. But yet to me, sportsmanship is like, but it's bigger than you. This whole thing that's happening, the reason it's working, the reason why you're in this position and you want more people to be in this position, is because it is bigger than you. And it's a hard thing sometimes to juggle when you are in the moment. You feel the pressure. You feel, sometimes, I know for me, very alone. But it's a reminder that this is something that's bigger than me. And sometimes that helps me. And honestly, sometimes that feels like a ton of pressure that's hard to handle, because you are carrying a lot of other people and opportunities in this moment. And sportsmanship brings that reminder of there's been women before you. I mean, Ann Myers Drysdale, everything that you've done in your career, in your life, women have opened these doors. And so you want to make sure through sportsmanship that you're the one that understands that this isn't about you, it's about all the women. And the ones that are coming. Like there might be a 3-year-old right now, she has no idea, but she's going to be president or she's going to be commissioner of MLB. And I have to make sure that my choices and what I'm doing are helping these girls and these women.
Well, and Julie, follow up on that as far as, the honor that you talk about in the character because of your sport. But it may be a little bit different for Jessica and Jen because they are in a male-dominated sport. Is it different for soccer as far as your career in using sportsmanship and the character that you've learned?
I would say it's actually similar because it's such a male-dominated sport globally, soccer. And when women started playing, it was like, what are you doing? This is our sport. How dare you? How dare you step into our world? But I love what Jess said too about it shaping your character, because I think when I think about one of the things we need more in life, and not just in sports, and especially given everything that's happening right now, and for me, life always intersects and comes back to sports. It's all these lessons I've learned, right? But it's about the ability to celebrate others. That's sportsmanship, in my opinion. And we don't do enough of that, and we don't teach enough of that to young kids, I think. And it's really the gift of sports, is it teaches you as a human being, right, to have, one, this incredible internal drive that's so important for your success personally, which we care about, right? We're all competitive. We want to be great in our jobs, great on the field or on the court or wherever we are in the gym. But we also have to celebrate others and move the game forward, which is, I think, celebrating the game. And so it has been this wonderful gift, sports, because it's taught me that balance of personal drive, but at the same time, the we is always greater than the me, as we always said on the national team. But to your point, Annie, I think, we live in a world in soccer that was largely a male one. And so we've had to constantly kind of rattle that cage on the women's side and say, hey, we're here. And this is us.
And Jen, following on that, just as a young girl, not only your family, the support system, and then just for you to be in sport that's dominated by men, basically. There is a women's pro football league, but you've chosen to play with the men because of the opportunities you've been given. And but certainly, is there a difference that you see because of the sport that you chose to follow? Was there a difference on how you had to act?
Yeah, there definitely is. The first thing that I want to touch on is to what Jessica kind of mentioned is, it's about something more than just you. And all of the women on this call to me and this panel to me have given me strength in different ways, right? Like, Annie, you reached out to me when I was in Arizona, and at that time, I was one of one. And that's a hard place to be, and I know Jessica's been there, because your narrative isn't allowed to be your own. Nobody was asking, could Jen Welter coach in the NFL, or could Jen Welter play football against men? It was, could a woman? And then it's hard because it is you, but it's not allowed to be just you because you're the only example. So the whole narrative lives and dies on your shoulders at that time, right? Like that you are a sample set of one. And for me, that was always as the first, the opportunity and responsibility is to ensure you're not the last, right? Like you're creating that opportunity because every person who sees it gets a spark of hope, right? Seeing Jessica in broadcast, right? Like for me, I was like, maybe I could do that in football one day, right? And it was this pride of seeing her do it and do it well. And then well, why don't we have more women in that, right? Like it creates this chain of questions that you then have an opportunity to aspire to answer, right? I know that I've cheered along with the U.S. national team in soccer. Like I remember this beautiful routine. And I'm not somebody who like, I'm going to tell you, Caitlin, I don't flip. If I do, somebody call 911, right? Like, I'm foot grounded. But I could appreciate this beautiful, wonderful competitor owning her sport, right? And that's what all of this becomes so powerful as we do it is, you know, it's those ripple effects of the people who see it gain strength, gain swagger, gain passion in their own right. And yes, sometimes for me, you know, having played in the women's game, that was what gave me the strength, drive, and fortification to step into the men's game, because we're the best kept secret in sports. And I didn't want us to be a secret anymore. It wasn't like I said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go play against guys. They approached me and I was like, you know what? We've won 2 gold medals. No one even knows we exist. And these guys don't think that we can play this game. Well, I'm going to play it, you know, and I'm going to do it their way. And all the guys knew, like, they had to cut me or kill me because I certainly wasn't quitting. And I was willing to do that because I knew it was about all of my sisters. I just happened to be the one who was there in the spotlight, but it was our fight that had progressed to get that opportunity to happen. And once in the men's game, you know, there was such a mutual love and respect. Once they saw I was there for the right reasons, all of them were really proud to be a part of history. And I think that that's a really important part, is we often say male dominated, but that doesn't mean that they own the space. It just means that they've had the majority. And we still, as women in those spaces, have a chance to go in and dominate and create mutual respect, because that's what I found from them, is that they were really happy to be a part of the change, and we could become good allies in what the future of that sport looked like. It wasn't like I was coming in and having to defeat them. Once I was there, you know, they were really proud of that. And I think there's a lot more of that, like, you know, brother sisterhood amongst the best of the best, because they really recognize game. And that's a powerful thing that we can show the rest of society, right? It's like, you know, when we play the games, when we're doing them to the highest of ability, like, game recognizes game, and we do support each other. And that's been one of the best lessons of my life.
Well, I think that's, to jump in real quick too, I think that's one of the things that, you know, has changed a lot. I feel like since like even the 70s, where it was the battle of the sexes and it was men versus women, and it was truly a battle. It was like, we're coming at you and we're beating down doors. And to be honest, now it is about having men as allies. And my biggest supporters have actually been men. And as much as women have helped, unfortunately, there aren't enough women in the positions. There are some, but most people making the decisions to hire, to put all of this stuff at the forefront, are men. And whether they have daughters or they have powerful, strong women in their life as mothers and wives, like, they get it. And that is so huge. I also feel like this time is like, I think about Caitlin and name, image, likeness and the NCAA right now and everything that's happening, because of you are a huge part of that. And it's because, you know, no, people saw what you did and were like, why is she? And that, as a female athlete, like, how important that is, you know, to be able to see Jen. I mean, I watched Julie Foudy cover the Men's World Cup, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't like, there's a woman. I was like, she's really good at this. Because I was coming in on it like, I was thinking, can she do this? Because if she can't, then like, I got no chance. So it's so important to see, and that's where I give so much credit to the spotlight that is being shown. And as much as it's so annoying, because it's like, hello, I have a name, I'm not just the woman. It's important for the spotlight to, you know, Caitlin, like, all of it, so that we can see that and then make change, you know, whether it's law changes that are coming now in college, or whether it's giving more women opportunities to work with men, and then men hiring them because they're like, crap, Jen Welter, shoot, like, we need more coaches, diverse audience because of what she's done. Sorry, I had to jump in.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. And Caitlin, do you find that in sports that it's so much about gender or color?
Definitely. I think it's interesting because I am in a female-dominated sport, but just growing up and kind of, I never paid attention to it before in my household. Even the gender roles are super switched, so I was always kind of like just right along with the boys always. And then growing up now, I see how different it is. Like Jessica brought up the NCAA stuff, and if it was flipped before, like if men had the chance to go to the Olympics at 16 and have to pick between a college scholarship or money at the Olympics, that rule would have been reversed so long ago. But I've seen so many of my friends give up the chance to make money at the Olympics to compete at college, or vice versa. They went to the Olympics and didn't have their storybook ending and couldn't come and compete at college. So to have to make that decision at such a young age, I think is super ridiculous. And gymnasts only make maybe $30,000 at the Olympics for a gold medal. So when you think about that, that's our one opportunity.
I didn't make any money. We were amateurs back then.
I just want you to know we had to pay to go represent the USA.
That's right.
Like in American football. So
you didn't know that, did you, Caitlin?
Yeah.
No.
Julie, did you get any money?
No.
Jessica?
But
You got money from the Olympics?
By
Yeah.
96,
For medals.
like they were offering like $15,000 for the gold medal. What do they give now for the gold medal, Caitlin? 30?
I heard 30,000. I don't know.
Wow.
That's if you medal. Like there's, I mean,
Yeah.
like just for people like listening going, well, that's a lot of money, but like you give your entire life every single day. You don't work. The only thing that you do is your sport. And for us, it was zero money unless you medaled. And so the pressure of that, and even then, like $30,000 in the amount of life that you've given up is, you're not gonna survive on that for very long.
And then you see
I'm much older than you guys. Go ahead, Caitlin. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But you see men's sport making probably $30 million in a contract. You know what I'm saying? So the difference between that is so twisted. And 4 girls every 4 years make it to the Olympics with gymnastics. So it's kind of just interesting to watch. We don't have men really like paving the way in our sport to be like bringing in the women. It's almost like our job to do that with the men in this case. So it's interesting. And I remember Simone is doing her own thing for the after post-Olympic tour. And all the men were freaking out because that's their one opportunity to get paid. But Simone was like, we're doing all women. So the men were coming to me and they're like, well, this isn't fair. I'm like, welcome to our life.
Yeah, and that's true. And the name of my book is You Let Some Girl Beat You. And so
I love that.
obviously it was years ago, but it's a term that is still used today. And but to be able to compete on the men's side, it's interesting. And as you said, Jessica, you've got men that are having daughters and wonderful mothers and wives that they're more involved with. But those decisions still, Julie, are made as far as, working. Are men that are in power positions to hire women if they need be, or the women that are in a power position, do women support women?
Well, it's one of the things that I think needs to be fixed, right?
And how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, to Jessica's point earlier, for example, I was just talking to someone within U.S. Soccer very high up, and they were hiring for a position there. And this woman was saying, it was really difficult to find a senior woman that could qualify for this position, and a woman of color. And I'm thinking, well, those women exist, right? There is binders full of these women. The problem is that we haven't identified them, or we're fishing from the wrong pond, right? We're going to largely, the group that's headhunting is white men who know other white men, who then, refer white men. And there's nothing against white men, but we also need to realize there's a whole pool of people that we're not actually attracting, that we're not fishing from that pond. And so it's my constant frustration all the time. And I said, please call me next time, right? Like I could refer you to 20 women who could give you another 20 women who, if they're not interested, could apply for this position. So one of the big issues we have is that we're in a situation where we don't have a lot of senior women making these decisions. And so, and you know, you even see it at, you know, large companies like ours at ESPN, right? You have a ton of women in the lower levels, but rising up to the top, do we see them rising up? Mind you, it is getting a lot better. And we have made great strides there. And for example, just the other day when I was covering World Cup, you know, I had a woman in my ear on set that was producing. I had a woman in my ear that was directing. I was being interviewed by a woman host, and I had a woman cameraman. Camerawoman. See, I said cameraman. Camerawoman. And I actually, before we went live, I was like, can we just take a moment to stop and recognize what's happening here? It's all women. This is amazing. And then this other voice in my earpiece was, and I'm doing graphics and I'm a woman too.
So awesome.
But you see it at companies like that. Like, you know, when you have a woman who's producing a segment, it's a very different angle you're covering, and Jess knows this well, than if you have a guy. And it's the power of diversity of thought. It's the power of getting diversity of color at the table as well, right? We have different mindsets, and you see different things, and you interact with different people. And studies have shown it's a much healthier organization when you have that diversity. So that is the big challenge that I'm constantly trying to push women to, like, we've got to get into the senior positions. We got to start thinking about how we get more women visible to get into those senior positions and sit at the table.
You just want to have the people that are making these decisions to be someone that gets and understands just a little bit, so you don't feel like you're alone. And like, I feel like I have to speak up in so many meetings, and it's annoying. And not just as a woman, but also as a Latina. Like, I mean, there's so many times, like, we're talking about Dominicans and Cubans and, you know, Mexicans, like they're all in the same category. And I'm like, hold up. Like, can I just break down how all these countries like are not the same? And there's so many times where you don't have that minority voice. And it's hard when you feel like, I feel like I'm constantly raising my hand or speaking up on calls, because if I don't, no one will. And there's times where I just want to not. Like, I mean, I want to, but I want someone else. So it's not like, here goes Jess again, like Mexicans aren't like Dominicans, and now what are you gonna say? Women aren't like, you know, it's like, I'm just like the minority over here. I'm like, can we get any other people to have these conversations? So yeah, like youth level, but the important thing is just for more of these conversations to be had, because when we're putting stuff on television, when we're deciding right now with Black Lives Matter, the discussions we're having within teams, I mean, everyone is outsourcing for this. Like my teammate, Natasha Watley, who was our only African-American player, she has spoken to every team, and she's like, I want the white coaches to have these conversations, but they're so uncomfortable. They're like, okay, who do I know that's Black? I'm going to call them, and they're going to be our person to have this conversation. So I'm going on a tangent there, but my point is, like, it's
a good one too that needs to be addressed.
It's exhausting is your point, right?
Yeah. Just like, I want there to be an understanding, not just of more diversity, but even within the people that are there to think and be okay to talk about, hey, you know what? I might be white and a man, but you know what? I can still think about how Latin players might feel about this, or during a Black Lives Matter conversation that we're having, I can still lead that conversation. I don't have to just call the one Black person I know to bring them in on this. And that to me is the most important thing, and why I feel like a lot of those conversations weren't happening is we need those people in the room, yes, and if they're not, still have them.
That's where it's, you know, a lot of people maybe check the box in terms of having someone in the room, but that room is only as good as the voice and the respect of having that person there, right? Like, I think one of the most dangerous places that we get into in terms of maintaining a status quo is that stay in your lane mentality. And that is something that's like, hey, are we going to look at this from a broader perspective? Because a lot of the times people have a very narrow way of looking at things. And, you know, for me, that at times is really tough because I'm like, hey, yeah, football person, absolutely. Coach, absolutely. But you do know I have a doctorate in psychology, so I can't shut that off. And this is an important part to put into the equation, but not everybody looks for the broader perspective. So I think really being clear on the need to have broader perspectives and how valuable they are, right? Like how, you know, I always use the example of having a cat that will crawl on my head in the middle of a conference call, right? Like, that is the true richness of this world. And I really wish I could like just hug him right now, because kind of reminds me of my Chihuahua. But like, if we come to diversity and we realize that that's brilliance, right? We always say that with reference to a diamond. What do we judge a diamond on? It's brilliance. And a brilliance comes with each facet actually capturing and bringing different dimensions to life, right? So those conversations are vitally important. And then we have to look at all of the places in society where we can instigate change and encourage conversation, right? That's why seeing these amazing women, you know, broadcasting games is so important, because that gives a spark of hope, right? And it's someplace that can be, and it creates a new sense of what a broadcaster looks like, right? That's why even the work with like EA Madden last year was really important, because for the first time you could see a female head coach in football. And, you know, in that virtual space, you have an opportunity to create what we hope the future looks like, right? So it's important to not just look at one area in society to create change, but all of those dimensions, because they fortify each other, right? And they round out, like, oh, that's really cool that they did that here. Maybe we should do that here. So that cross-pollination and strength. You know, football is actually at an interesting place right now. I think, you know, it still is a sport that suffers from sins of omission. And that's my big thing that I've been working on, is like, you don't have to just tell a girl she can't play. It's reinforced everywhere where a woman isn't. And so, you know, that's where video games come into play and some of those. But American football is the only sport that doesn't have parity at any level, from peewees to the pros. And that's the place that we're at. And there are amazing women and men working to instigate change, right? Like, we now have 4 states that have varsity high school flag football, right? Where you can be a varsity athlete playing flag football. And I want it 50-50, right? I want 100% for change. Patience is a virtue that I don't have, but we're getting there, right? A big significant change is the NAIA just announced this year that for the first time, they would have varsity flag football as a collegiate sport, which all of you know now is for the first time you could, through football as a girl, change the trajectory of your life through playing and education. So to me, that's one of the biggest shifts that we've had.
Yeah, a lot of good changes. But Julie, talk about it as far as, you know, Jen mentioned, society-wise. You know, we can do the acceptance within our own sports or the career of ESPN at broadcasting and so forth with other companies and so forth. But as far as society making that change and accepting women predominantly on men's sports, and how that's a breakthrough, and why should that be just a breakthrough? But certainly trying to get to the society part of it.
You know, we're living through a moment right now when we're seeing the Black Lives Matter movement, when we're seeing protests, when we're seeing the Me Too movement, when we're seeing, you know, this discussion about, for example, our U.S. women's soccer team with their equal pay lawsuit. I mean, there are a lot of topics on the table that we're talking about openly that we've never talked about before. right? And we're bringing light to these dark areas that we've just swept under the rug for a long time. And I would put the women's movement in there as well as one of these areas. And as hard as that is for a lot of people, and as exhausting as it is on, for example, I know all of my Black female friends will talk about how tired they are right now, but that it's a tiredness that they welcome because we're finally having the conversation. And the same goes about equal pay and women's role in society globally and here in this country, and just coming out of the shadows and recognizing. And it's the one thing that I hope we all pass on to our kids. It's a constant topic of conversation we're having with my 13 and 11-year-old around the dinner table. It's just this whole theme of equality. Doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter what God you worship, right? Where you live, how you live, like treat people equally. If we start there with that kindness and that sense of morality and that compass, then I think society as a whole is a much better place. And we know that, and we prosper, and we move forward. And so those are the conversations finally we're having, that will again come to a place where we start sweeping under the rug because it's easier, right? Or because the majority voice wins out in that regard. And so these conversations, because they're so healthy and they're so important to society moving forward.
Well, and I'm going to ask each one of you, as far as, Jessica, I'll start with you, as far as, Julie just talked about your character and being kind and just how you treat people in all these conversations. Was there a time, or has there been a time, whether as an athlete or as in your career as a broadcaster, where your sportsmanship was challenged, and how you use that in the positive?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
how many days do you have, Annie?
Only one. You only get one.
I like that it's like sportsmanship was challenged. Like basically, like, how do I keep myself from punching someone in the face is how I like hear that.
Look, I just.
There obviously there's times like growing up and playing in sport for sure that like you're challenged, but I've never been challenged as much as the last 5 years. And just the hatred, and to Julie's point, like it resonates so much, and it's so like a duh like thing, like, but I think where I was broken out of my own bubble is I hear what she's saying, and honestly 5 years ago I've been like, who wouldn't do that? Like I don't know if just growing up and like just being around people and maybe only seeing a lot of love, and understanding that it's not everywhere, but just being confronted by people that literally hated me because I was a female in a male space. And I was just blown away by, like, I get if you disagree with how I broke down Mike Trout's back leg on that swing and you don't think that that was right because that's my job and you were hearing me, and you can disagree. But the fact that you just see me and go, she's a woman, leave, go, like literally people were like telling me to go back to Mexico, go back to the kitchen, like cocina, they like combine it, they both together in one, and I'm just like, what? And I think that's where my sportsmanship was challenged, because I just personally, I wanted to sit down with all of that. Like literally there'd be people on Twitter and I'd want to reach out and be like, can we have coffee? Like, can we talk about like what's going on in your life? And my husband was like, yeah, I think that's a really bad idea.
Where is this hatred coming from? Let's talk.
No, seriously, I like literally would be up at night, not so much like angry and wanting to fight them, but more of like, can we just sit down and talk about why you need to hate me for being a woman? Like, it's 2000 in the time, it's 2015, it's 2020. Like, why do we hate people for being anything different than what we've seen before? And to me, that's an obvious, like, but I understand that there are many, and we're seeing it more this year than I've ever seen before, that when it's someone that is different, there is a lot of hatred. And I don't know, I feel like that the answer isn't to then just fight them with more anger and hatred. Like, that's what I do know, because that's a reaction that I would get from my own family. They're like, I mean, I have cousins, like this is Mexican, but I was like, cousin, I can find out who this person is and we can take care of it. I'm like, yeah, so that's like, I'm like, yeah, that might take care of maybe that one, but that's not what we're doing. Like, I want to sit down with like our sides right now, whether it's Republican, Democrat, like black, white, I mean, there's so many sides. Can we just sit in a room and have a conversation, not hate, not yelling, not fighting, but just actually, and I want to, like, if you hate me, I do want to sit down with you. I would love to sit in the same room with you. And maybe you might have to be restrained if you want to like hurt me. Like, can we actually just talk like human beings? Because you'll find out that like, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. So why do you want to hurt me? Right. And that's just the part that I still don't understand.
Well, Caitlin, you do a lot of social media too. So have you encountered any of that?
Oh, all the time. The kitchen one really resonated with me because anytime ESPN or SportsCenter posts me, the comments are always, why isn't she in the kitchen? Why isn't she making a sandwich? I remember when the ESPYs was happening and I was up for best play and someone was like, oh, I bet she's only going to win because she's a woman. Or another one that was recent was like, but would the routine really have been the same if she didn't have that body? And it was kind of like, yes, I worked my butt off for this moment. Like, can we give women the respect that they deserve, not sexualize them and say it's because they're a woman or they get the recognition because they look a certain way? It's not about that. We're talented and we deserve a chair at the table, right? So that's something that I've definitely experienced, and going along with that, I feel like for me, my challenge with sportsmanship came with this whole routine going viral last year and having to be hyper aware of my teammates, just because I know, especially, it's like everyone wants that recognition. Everyone has worked their entire lives for this moment. And so to be the one that kind of got a lot of recognition with the sport, I went through a whole period where it was like my life was so hectic. I was in school and competing and training and still had to do all these interviews. But then I realized that I wasn't in it alone. My teammates were there for me 100%. And they also felt the heat of everything that was happening, because now everyone's showing up to our competitions. Everyone's kind of, all eyes are on UCLA gymnastics. So it was really cool to have shoulders to lean back on, but also know that I wasn't alone in that moment. And I wanted to be with my team 100%, like by their sides during all of it. So they were really, really important for me.
Jen?
Oh, my sportsmanship? Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, there were a lot of people who were very, very happy to see a woman in football. Just pause there. And, you know, I think it was particularly interesting for me when I played on the men's. That was the best prep that I could have ever had for the NFL. Because, you know, for the women in football, we were doing what we did and we're the best in the world, no doubt. And yet no one really was that hard on us because they didn't know we existed, right? So as good as we were, as amazing a team, we just didn't have that platform. And yet, when I went to the Revolution, all of a sudden it was the #1 story in the country that this woman was, you know, 5'2" and playing tackle football with men in the professional ranks. And I just had to block everything out because that was the first time I experienced death threats. I have a great story for you. There was this amazing comment on social media about me playing with men. And it was, she's going to get hit and die and or get pregnant. And I thought it was so amazing because I was one of the best linebackers in the world for a really long time. And I hit a whole lot of people, but I never knew it was possible to hit someone so hard that you could cause immaculate conception and death all at once. And, you know, it kind of changed the conversation because it's like, where do you go from there? You've got immaculate conception and death. It can't get any worse. Can we talk football? Right? And so humor became kind of a go-to that thankfully I got good at in those situations, because they're always going to come up. And the best thing that you can do is not give them all your energy, because Jessica, I'm like you. I want to sit down with you. I want to talk to you. I wish with everything that is going on politically right now that everybody would have been in locker rooms like I am. I wish everybody would have had football experiences like I do, because, you know, football, first of all, requires diversity at its core, right? In no other sport can you look out on the field and see every make, model, shape, size, creed, color, every muscle, every hustle, and a whole lot of crazy working together to create a choreographed dance. Like, it doesn't work if we all look the same. And not only do we recognize that people are different, but we embrace their differences and put them in positions to succeed because of their skill set. And I think that's such a beautiful societal position, is like, I see you, I see how you're different, and this wonderful life experience or skill set that you have that's different than mine. And now as a coach, I look as like, where can we maximize that and put it in a place of impact? And I think if that could translate into society, we would be a whole lot better off, because, you know, whether it's because my teammate experiences, the coaching, or the psychology, like, I love people's stories and I love learning their culture and really getting infused with that richness. And I think that the conversations would be a whole lot better right now in our country if everybody had to play a sport where whether or not they walked off the field would depend on whether or not somebody would block for you. Because you are on an island in that sport and you cannot do it alone, or you will find out very quickly why it's a team sport.
Well, there's no question that all four of you women are a driving force for progress and reshaping the future of not just sports, women in sports, women in color, religion, as you said, whatever your God is. And it's so important what we've all learned and we continue to learn, to hopefully that people don't feel threatened, that they can feel that they can open up. And where is that hatred? But certainly the future of women's sports, you guys are in the forefront, and you need to stay there. Certainly there's women behind you that you are definite role models. And this panel has been unbelievable, and I wish we had more time to listen to more stories, because each and every one of you has impacted me, that's for sure, and you always do every day because of the people you touch. So thank you so much for being a part of this first panel this afternoon and starting it off strong.
Thanks, Danny.
Way to go, guys. Just because you're stuck behind a screen and at a desk with virtual learning, it doesn't mean that you can't take care of yourself inside and out. Each day, we'll be providing you with 5-minute wellness tips of exercises and meditation that you can do at your desk. Today, we have yoga instructor Stephanie Gaines. She's joining us for a brief yoga session. We're going to have you stand up, push aside your chair, and join us for some desk yoga. It's time to get up and stretch.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, everyone. I'm Steph Gaines. I'm so honored to be here with you. And my goal for the next few moments is to just get you up and moving and show you some stretches that you can add throughout your day, any day, all day, every day, to get you up and moving and to reverse some of the effects that sitting at a desk all day might have on the body. So wherever you are, get up, find some space. A mat is fine, carpet, wherever you are is perfectly fine. And just find groundedness on 2 feet right here. Give your shoulders a little roll. Bring your palms beside you. And together, just take a deep inhale. Open mouth, exhale. Yeah, one more like that. Let it be audible. Breathe in. Breathe out. Beautiful. Inhale, mountain pose. Stand nice and tall on 2 feet. Reach your arms long. Exhale, connect your palms together to your heart center and roll out your wrist. Roll them in circles in one direction, then roll them back in the opposite direction. Release your hands down. Inhale, mountain pose. Exhale, side body stretch. Grab for your wrist with your left hand and pull your body up and over to the left while sending your hips to the right. Keep hugging your inner thighs together. Inhale, come back through center, stand tall. Exhale, side body stretch up and over in the opposite direction. Breathing space through your side bodies. Inhale, mountain pose. Exhale, fold forward. Soften the knees with a flat, strong spine. Relax your head and neck. Shake your head out here. Inhale, high, halfway lift. Working a long spine here. Contract your navel towards your spine. Then pin your elbows in and back so your shoulder blades are hugging in, strengthening your upper back here. Breath in. Exhale, release. Bring your feet hip-width distance apart and bend your knees a lot. Ragdoll pose. Let your head hang heavy. Grab for opposite elbows here and just start to sway. Be generous with your movement here. We're working to decompress the spine. So you may feel release in your low back and your shoulders, creating length that sitting causes throughout the day. Gently release your hands down and scoop up the soles of your feet with the palms of your hand. So your toes are coming all the way to kiss your wrists, and relax your head once again. Start to massage your hands with your wrist here. Massage your hands with your toes here, rather. Good, yeah, this posture is a great pose to do throughout the day. You're bringing fresh blood, oxygen, breaking up the fascia in the hands here that texting and typing causes. Beautiful, release your hands. Bring your big toes back to connect. Forward fold. Inhale, high halfway lift once again, pressing head forward, tailbone back. Exhale, high plank pose. Firmly press your hands into the mat. Drive your heels back behind you. Breath in. Exhale, downward facing dog. Just breathe here. Shake your head out. Make sure you're not holding any tension in your neck. Then inhale, rise up onto your tiptoes. Shift your weight forward. Come back to that high plank pose. Press the tops of your feet into the mat and open up through your heart. Yeah, find your upward facing dog here. Send your chest forward, so stand nice and proud with your heart's breath in. Exhale, downward facing dog. Good, let's flow just that. Inhale, high plank pose, flip your feet, up dog, open up. Exhale, downward facing dog. One more time. Inhale, high plank pose, flip the tops of your feet to touch the mat. Exhale, downward facing dog. Breathe in, breathe out. Inhale, three-legged dog. Lift your right leg behind you. Exhale, low lunge. Lightly step your foot between your palms and surrender your back knee to the mat. Inhale, crescent moon. Reach your arms up. Expose your chest up towards the ceiling. Melt your hips down and forward. Good, you're opening up the front of your hip flexor here. Inhale. Exhale, downward facing dog, step it back. Inhale, three-legged dog, lift your left leg up and back. Exhale, low lunge, gently step your foot towards your thumbs. Drop your back knee down. Inhale, crescent moon, reach your arms up. Breathe here. Good, keep letting your pelvis shift forward and down. If this is super intense on your hips, your hands can come to your thighs or even down to the mat. Inhale. Exhale, downward facing dog. Plant your palms, step it back. One breath in here. Exhale, drop down to your knees. Inhale, cow pose, melt your belly down, lift your gaze up. Exhale, cat, contract your spine, spread your shoulder blades apart. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, neutralize your spine. Cross your ankles, take a seat. Nice work, send your legs long. Sit up nice and tall here. Inhale your arms up. Exhale, seated forward fold. Now knees can be super bent here. I like to really bend my knees to release my low back and then round my spine. But find what feels good in your own body. Where do you feel the stretch? And then hold and breathe there. Inhale, slowly rise. Bend your knees, scoot forward, reach your arms long, and slowly start to lower down to your back using that core strength. Plant your feet. Inhale, bridge pose. Lift your hips high. Glide your shoulders behind your heart. Squeeze your glutes here. Send your hips high. Inhale. Exhale, gently release. Hug your knees into your chest. Big breath in. Exhale, supine twist. Allow your knees to fall up and over to the left. Open up your arm. Gaze to the right. Iron your shoulder onto the mat. Inhale through center. Exhale, supine twist, opposite side. Gaze past your left fingertips. Inhale, ball pose, come back to center. Give yourself a tight squeeze, you did it. Exhale, Shavasana. Just 3 rounds of breath here. Find a neutral spine, allowing yourself to be flat. Allowing your body to restore and to recover, to absorb the changes you've just created. Take a full body stretch. Inhale, let your rib cage flare open. Exhale, hug your knees into your chest, roll onto either side body, and press your way up to a comfortable seat. Any comfortable seat is beautiful. Inhale together, reach long. Exhale your hands to your heart. Inhale, draw your thumbs up to your third eye center. Together we bow forward. Namaste. Thank you so much for having me. I hope your body feels good and have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Oh, it feels so good to stretch and get going. Let's keep things moving along. I'm so excited for this next group of women as we talk about taking care of yourself from the inside out. This next discussion is all about mental wellness and how to avoid burning yourself out by finding balance. Nina Westbrook, a former UCLA Bruin athlete, yay, a devoted mother of 3 with twin daughters, wife of NBA All-Star Russell Westbrook. Nina can be found following her passion as a licensed marriage and family therapist. Lauren Gibbs graduated from Brown University playing volleyball and an MBA from Pepperdine. At age 30, after being in the corporate world, Lauren was asked to compete in bobsledding for the United States and is an Olympic silver medalist and is training for the 2022 Olympics. Kirsten Jones, a Nike executive, William and Mary Hall of Fame volleyball player. Kirsten and her husband, raising 3 teenagers, works as a peak performance coach and co-hosts the podcast Raising Athletes. And Jen Melton, the founder of the pet product CloudStar, sold in 14 countries, where she sold her company and last year in 2019 founded Sam and Nala, a global handmade pet and home goods company, a mother with a passion of growing businesses and empowering leaders to build strong teams. So thank you everybody for joining us today. So first of all, I'll start with you, Nina. Do you feel there's a lack of conversation surrounding mental health and wellness in schools and systems today?
I think I would agree with that statement. I think that we've come a long ways from where we started years ago. And I think that there's so much more of an emphasis on mental wellness and maintaining, a healthy state of mind. But I still think that there's a long ways to go as far as how we prioritize our mental health, and not only individually, but as a unit. I know there's a lot of sports. We've all been in sports, right? And so I remember at UCLA, it was amazing. We had the luxury and the privilege to have a therapist on hand and someone there to kind of help us walk through and talk through all of the things that we were experiencing as student athletes. So I think that things moving in that direction is kind of what would be idea, and the focus has to be there, and the priority has to shift to really emphasize and make sure people understand how important it is to maintain our mental health, especially when we're juggling school, classes as students, extracurricular activities, and in the workspace.
You know, Kirsten, you know, working for Nike, and obviously you have children too, and being an athlete yourself at William and Mary, talk about, you know, what you've seen from as a school that you went to, and then the transition being in corporate America, and especially a company that is involved with athletics.
Yes, as an athlete, juggling so many balls and trying to figure it all out was tricky. But those are the, I think, lessons that help you become more successful in the corporate world and beyond. And what I saw particularly for women was we were taking on everything. We were working full-time. We were full-time mothers. We were also taking care of everything at the house, or most everything at the house, right? As much as we like to pass the ball around. And now with people being on Zoom, women are taking on even more as they're trying to get kids on Zoom and getting them, you know, on classes and everything else, and still trying to balance their inner wellness. And if I can speak to what I work with my clients on, which is, you know, to what Nina was talking about, there are some big profile athletes like Kevin Love and Michael Phelps, and, you know, that are coming forward and saying, this is an issue and let's talk about it, and shining a light on it, which I think is giving everybody permission to say, it's okay to say you're stressed. You know, it's like a dashboard on the car, and when a light's going off, it doesn't mean that the car is going to shut down, but it's an indicator that you need to do something about it. And what I like to work with clients on in my peak performance is all about, before the light goes on, let's put some pieces in place that give you tools to help you when the light goes on. You're like, okay, I know what I need to do, like mindfulness, like meditation, like affirmations, like prayer, and yoga, and having a purpose every day when you get up, that you're focused on what it is you're going to do that day. Because when you're focused on that, then the stresses don't kind of overwhelm you.
Lauren, you know, going off of what Kirsten said, as far as, you know, the things to help you deal with those stress, and you're still a competitive athlete, and talk about really kind of what you face as far as that transition, that you're still competing in that kind of stress, or your mental wellness and how you have to deal with that, and also your physical wellness in not only staying in shape, but the pressures that you deal with.
Yeah, you know, in the Olympic space, it can feel like your sport becomes your identity, which means your win and loss record becomes who you are and your value. And there's been a lot of talk in the Olympic space, especially recently. There's a lot of documentaries that have come out. A few of my teammates have been on those documentaries. And it's definitely, we really prioritize, right? Everybody is an athlete. We really prioritize, you know, if you sprain your ankle, if you hurt your knee, like there is a procedure and a protocol to handle that. And it can happen very quickly, especially for Team USA. They can have you on a flight to a doctor in an operating room in an instant. But one thing that is, I think, an issue with mental health is, one, sometimes people don't even know how to recognize when it's happening. Right? They feel like they're living in this silo of, this is just a problem I'm having. And I've been very lucky. My dad is a clinical psychologist, so we always talked about feelings in my family. I was in therapy a lot as a kid, as an adult, you know, but not everybody has kind of that upbringing. And so I think the more that we can talk about it and make it less taboo, you know, I watched The Way to Gold, and I haven't been in the Olympic space as long as Michael Phelps, but it's interesting, like, and every Olympian I've talked to, we have the same feelings after the Olympics. The Olympics ends, and then you're like, well, what do I do now? Because you dedicate all your time and energy. Bobsled is all I think about when I get up, when I go to sleep. I have dreams and sometimes nightmares about it. And so when that piece of your identity is not taken away, but ends, it's like, well, who am I now? And so that's a big part of balance and mental health.
You know, Jen, talk about your stress or your transition from owning your own company, starting your company and selling it, and then starting another company.
Right. Well, it's definitely been through some cycles in my life. I started my first company at 24 and ran that for 14 years. And through that time, had 2 kids and went through a lot of what younger people are going through now, which is, it's a challenge. And then yes, definitely starting another company with 2 teenagers in the house as a single mom. It's a different road. And I think talking a little about what Lauren was just saying, which was, you know, I think things happen so gradually in life. Like, you know, you're feeling a little bit stressed. You're like, oh, it's normal. You start getting used to, especially with COVID and things that are going on, this new normal that like, oh, no, that's okay. No, that's okay. I can handle that. Nope, I can handle that too. And especially as women, I think we have a huge capacity to grow and change and morph, but these things happen so gradually that we don't even realize. And one day we wake up and there's just this enormous heavy weight on us. And it's trying to figure out how to change some things in your life before you get to that point where there's this huge weight sitting on you. Starting 2 companies has been a challenge. And there's a lot of things that I found from the time I was in my 20s till now, you know, I'm mid 40s, figuring out what it is that works for me. And I think it's a constantly changing thing, depending on where you are in your life. And doing strategies, talking to therapists. I work with high school athletes. I'm a varsity swim coach. And I feel like young people today that are especially high schoolers, they're so much more self-aware of therapy, about getting help, about reaching out to it, talking about their feelings than we ever were 20 years ago.
Well, Nina, the stress, I keep using the word stress, but how you deal emotionally too with your husband being gone, who is not only your husband, but also the father of your children. And he's focusing and competing on such a high level in his job.
I think that first off, I would like to say I resonate with everything that everybody has been saying thus far. So you guys are amazing. As far as like how I'm coping and handling being home with the kids, because we do have a big capacity to handle lots of things. Now handle them all extremely well, I'm not quite sure, but we will try as long as we can, right? And so I think that one of the biggest lessons for me has been to lean on my support system, and also just try to incorporate my husband in any way that I can, whether he's, you know, on FaceTime watching the kid, having breakfast with the kids, and, you know, keeping them occupied while I throw the laundry in the washer, or whatever the situation may be. I think that finding a balance and trying to maintain a balance has been extremely difficult. So I feel as though just focusing on the one thing at a time, not making long-term goals, just focusing, especially right now during the current climate, it's difficult to really pinpoint what a long-term goal will even look like 2 or even 3 weeks from now. So it's like relishing in the small victories, like what do we need to get done today? And then within that time frame, what can I do to kind of take care of myself and get a little second win, as we like to say, as athletes. And so I think that that's really key, depending on our support system. The last thing I want to add is that we're going through this pandemic together. And so everybody's kind of facing similar experiences. And so this is the best time. There's no better time to rely on even an extended community like you ladies, because we can all relate to the situation that we're in now, and take and learn and grow from each other's experiences, and just have that sense of connection.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, Lauren, as far as, you know, Nina talks about that balance and trying to find that. And how do you, as an athlete, in the sense of, you talked about your father and so forth, you were exposed to that, which is great. But as much as we talk about it, there's a lot of people that don't have that support system, like Nina was talking about. And not only the support system emotionally, but financially to be able to make that first step?
Yeah, I think support is so important. And just to follow up quickly on what Nina was saying is when she was talking, I was thinking, like, you have to remember people can't read your mind. Like, they don't know how you're feeling or you're thinking. And sometimes you feel like, can't you tell that I'm stressed? Can't you tell that I need help? And so one thing I had to learn to do was to ask for help, because when I started, my Olympic career, I was an area sales manager. I was running a team of 200 people in 5 different states. So like the buck stopped at me. And so I just had gotten out of practice of asking for help or asking for questions. So I just want to say, like, if you are struggling with something, people aren't going to just automatically know. Ask for help. But then back to your question, Ann, and your question was support. Well, sorry.
Support financially too.
Yeah.
And financially.
Yeah, that plays a big role in what you're able to do. My story of quitting my job and running off to the Olympics is a great one. But I also had money saved. I had a supportive family. I had a dad who bought my car. Fun fact, everyone: if you lease a car, you cannot return it. I mean, you can, but they're going to continue to make you pay for it. So all you high schoolers and college students out there who maybe wanted to get a car when you're ready, as soon as you get out of school, you just remember that buck stops at you. So yeah, support is everything. And I think if you don't feel like you have the support you need to do what you're trying to accomplish, the more you share your goals and your dreams, the more that support will come. Because what I've found in my journey is that people really like to see other people succeed, and be part of that journey, right? If someone can be part of your, there are plenty of people that are part of my Olympic journey, and I think, it's like they live through my dreams and my journey. And so you'd be amazed how many people will come to your aid when you ask for it. And so that's, I think, really important to remember.
Yeah, and this is, Kirsten and Jen, kind of for you as far as how do you get that first step balance? Because as you said, you work with young people and in helping them. And a lot of times still today, we find children, whether it's elementary school or junior high school, they are resistant to come out and say that they have issues or problems, and they don't know how to express those problems and understand what they are. So with both of you, I'll start with Kirsten first, and how you deal with that and talking to these young people.
Yeah, actually, if I can jump on what Lauren was talking about.
Please do. Do that first.
I always tell young people, focus on the what and the why, and the how will appear. And what happens is we get so focused on, in Lauren's case, which is amazing, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to go to the Olympics, which is an amazing goal. And it's a huge goal. But I can guarantee you every day when she got up, the first thing she didn't do was say, I'm at the Olympics. She said, what am I going to do today in service of that goal? My whole why, my being for my purpose today is to get to the Olympics, which is the end goal. I'm going to have this group of people that are going to help me get there. But the clearer I am on what I want, why I want it, then I can be focused and I can get the support, and the support shows up. And that's true of anything, whether it's making your varsity basketball team or getting into your dream college or getting your dream job. Those all start with you being clear on what your purpose is. So every day you get up and you say, I'm going to think, meditate for 20 minutes, and I'm going to write down, what can I do today? What action can I take that's going to put me in alignment to go towards that goal? And then, sorry, back to your question about, I think the biggest thing young people can ask is, we all have, hopefully you have an inner circle, a support group, but there's a lot of people out there that want to help, that don't know, as Lauren was saying, they don't know, they can't read your mind. But I always encourage people, yes, maybe your parent is one of your best friends, but there's also a coach or a teacher or a counselor or someone that can be more of a neutral party that doesn't have skin in the game, that can be good eyes for you, and you can just go and ask. So ask for their insight as to, what do you see? What are the next steps for me? How can I move forward? And the more courageous you can be in asking for what you want, like I said, then the how shows up. Those other pieces show up. The right person shows up. The right opportunity shows up to help you get to your goal.
And I think I'll jump in because I think we're all dancing around one subject, which is, it sounds like every one of us here on the panel is an athlete of some sort. So for me, the way I balance things is I know that the first thing I have to do in the morning is I have to get up and work out. And watching my teenagers through COVID is sometimes the first thing that goes. You're feeling stressed out. You have so much stuff you have to do. You've got kids now, or you've got college work. And the first thing we let go is that component of working out, whether it's taking a walk, listening to an audiobook, whether it's running, swimming, whatever it is that you find joy doing. Maybe you don't think you do, but as soon as you get done, you feel better. It helps to set this trend for the day. So for me, working out is 100% absolutely critical. That is there's no go line. I feel like with my kids, my 16-year-old's been fabulous. She's a water polo player. She goes to the pool every day through COVID. She's found her thing. My 13-year-old, I am pushing her out the door to go walk the dog. And she comes back and she's surfing, and invariably, like, that's what makes her happy. So finding that little piece of your day, I think, too, that makes you and brings you that bit of joy, I think, is unbelievably important. But now, Kathy, I can't even remember what your original question was either. All these things are coming out with these really great ideas. I would also say that, so my second company that I founded, my desire is to work with women. So I work with artisans and weavers in the highlands in Guatemala right now because they don't have access to a market that we have here. So that is bringing me intense, immense joy, is helping build up other women, which, getting back to all of these amazing women's points, is that we want to help each other. And the more we can cultivate that environment amongst women and men that are helping us as well, the better we're all going to be.
And just to follow up on that, both Nina and Lauren, we talk about race. Does race come into effect there, or is it economics, or is it just gender, or what?
Within communities of color, the stigma behind mental health continues to be a little bit worse, or a little bit more amplified, because there's this idea, there's this concept that you are weak if you reach out or if you need help or support. And it's just a sign, and people are afraid to be vulnerable. They don't want to be considered weak. They don't want to be considered, and they don't want to put their feelings out on the table, because that's not necessarily something that we, as a community of color, have been taught. And especially to talk about your feelings and what you're going through and your struggles outside of the family unit is also another component. And so I think that things are getting better. Mental health awareness and mental health resources available to communities of color have definitely increased, but by no means, again, is it where it needs to be. And so I think that continuing to hone in on that and normalize the fact and the idea that everyone has emotions. We all go through ups and downs, regardless of whether you put a label on it or not. Stress is stress. Everybody's stressed right now. So that's not taboo. And so just understanding, I think it's important for communities of color and people to understand that they're worth the time and the energy and the effort to prioritize their mental health. And just to put themselves in the best position to feel their best and to perform at the highest level.
Lauren, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that Nina said. I'd say socioeconomical status has a impact as well, right? If you are potentially living paycheck to paycheck, or just focusing on feeding your kids, paying your bills, just surviving from day to day, you're going from work to the kids to what have you, it makes it really hard to prioritize yourself, right? Because you always feel like you're just trying to hold on. And so I think that, really bringing resources into communities and to families that need it is huge and is necessary. Like Nina said, I think it's getting better, but we're far from where we need to be as far as everybody feeling like they have the space and the bandwidth to talk about what they're going through.
And it also seems too, as women, that we take on everything, and it's like we can handle it. And they say that, we multitask. And so, Kristen, if you could follow up on just we can deal with it. We can do it. We can, whether we're taking care of the kids or whether we're, doing laundry and doing the dishes and making beds, and then we've got to make calls and get on Zoom, and then we've got to take care of our husbands. We just, so we're running all over the place and wearing so many hats. So how does that affect as far as women just kind of saying, we can deal with it. I'll handle it, and instead of asking for help?
Yeah, I don't know about the other women on the panel, but usually when I'm in the middle of stress, you're just fighting the fire, right? And it's when you're past it that you look back and you thought, whoa, I was really stressed out. But I always think of it as plate spinning. I always got plate spinning. In fact, if I'm sitting on the couch and I'm not folding laundry or getting the dog or like doing something else, I feel like I'm not being efficient, right? So I've got to be multitasking. And yes, it's from being a mother and having 3 kids and teenagers and this and that and dogs and husbands and the groceries. And if I have to make one more, meal this week, it's like you're constantly doing all of that. But at the same time, I do really find that it really helps to say, what is the one thing I can do for myself today in this moment? And is it getting up 5 minutes early? And maybe it's only 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes before the dog starts barking and the kids start asking for breakfast that you spend taking 5 deep breaths, just centering yourself to say, this is my time. And this is what I'm going to do to help me put myself on the path for handling all of the we love too, right? I would be miserable if I couldn't multitask. So it's a joy, right? And that's what we love about being, working moms and being able to and being athletes. I mean, that's what we were trained to do, was handle the stress and the pressure, and that's what we love. That's when we rise to the occasion and do our best.
Nina, Kristen had talked about, not just juggling it but the what. What are you going to do today? And we know, and part of that, as far as handling things, whether it's mentally or physically, we know things don't always go the way we want them to. And obviously as athletes, we do know that because we don't always win and we don't always do the things that we were trained to do, and it doesn't work that day. But certainly as a mother and as working mothers and women, that what we have planned is not the plan that's always going to happen because kids are involved or other people make suggestions. So how do you adjust and change strategy when things don't go as planned?
I think that one of the main things that is going to be important is to manage your expectations, especially during the pandemic, where it's like we don't know really what's going on and things are different. We're doing homeschool now with our kids, or kids are not going and they're not as active as they were. They're not able to just go out and meet with friends and hang out, or whatever the case may be. So managing our expectations, I think, is a big thing. That goes with our children, whether you're finding that you need to have a little bit more patience with your children, or even a little bit more patience with your spouse. And also understanding and allowing a little bit more grace for yourself and for your family and your friends and people, and everyone's kind of trying to figure it out as we go, right? Being open and adaptable and to new experiences and new opportunities and new things, because everything is not always going to be as planned. I'm also, as Jen said, I'm a type A personality. So this time has also been exceptionally difficult for me. But it's also been really good because I feel like I've been able to grow by allowing myself to let go of the shoulds and the woulds and the oughts and expectations and feeling as though things have to be just so. It's just a huge stress relief and a way to limit and minimize your anxieties, because if your expectations are pretty balanced and decent, then you're less likely to be disappointed and less likely to be stressed out. So
Lauren, talk about being an Olympian and as far as what they do at the Olympic Village, where you are in Chula Vista and training camp and so forth. But how has the United States Olympic Committee and base really gotten involved with mental and physical wellness?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's clear that it's become a necessity, and it is moving in the right direction. And there have always been resources. I think the issue isn't that there aren't resources. It's just how athletes utilize them or feel comfortable utilizing them, right? So when you're trying to make an Olympic team, you don't want the coaches to have your coaches, teammates, anybody to have any kind of doubt about you, right? And so because mental health hasn't been something that is, widely talked about as an acceptable issue to battle, people just kind of push it aside because I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be seen as, fragile or someone that can be trusted. And so I think what, what's really happening within our own athlete groups is just having conversations like, after the Olympics, I didn't think I was going to have a tough time because I am not my sport. I know that. This is something that I did for me, and I did it very well, and I won a medal, and I'm successful. And then when it ended, I found myself waking up at 2:00 in the morning crying for no reason, for no reason. And just being able, thankfully I was here in Chula Vista, and one of the sports med ATCs that I work with one day was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Okay, let's get you some help."
But you had the courage to say no.
Yeah, because of the background that I come from, right? And so I think the biggest thing that the USOPC is doing right now is just giving athletes opportunities to share stories with each other and with the USOPC so that there's a better understanding that, one, you're not the only one going through this, and two, how much help and how many resources that are needed. And also when we retire, right, it's like the Olympics ends. If you're not going on to the next cycle, it's kind of like, okay, bye, and there needs to be something for Olympians because it's never former, right? Always, right? And so there needs to be something, maybe not forever, but there needs to be something through that transition period. So, but one thing that Nina said that I wanted to touch on is, because I'm also very type A, but have really found the opportunity during COVID to expand other areas of my life, which I've really been enjoying. But something one of my mentors taught me is you can't change what's already happened, but you can only handle how you react to it and what you do once it's happened. And so that's really something that I've taken with me because I've had bad races. I lost at the Olympics, right? I won a medal, but I lost at the Olympics. But I won a world championship this past year. So, how you respond when things happen to you is really going to dictate, what happens moving forward and how you grow from it. And so that's what I would challenge people is when things don't go your way, because they're going to not go your way a lot. And I think graduating from high school, I went to a high-powered private high school. I was like, I've got it all figured out. I'm the queen. I'm going to run the world. By now, I would have had 2 kids. I've been a CEO, have some cars, have some houses. I was going to be living large. And, not married, don't have kids, but I'm still living the life that I'm proud to live. And so I think you have to remember that you don't have to have it all figured out of high school. Definitely don't have to have it figured out out of college. And when I turned 30, I was like, this is what I figured out. You don't have to have it all figured out at 30 either.
And even 30 years after that too, Lauren.
Exactly. You stop trying to figure it out. Just live your life.
Day by day. And Kirsten, as far as Lauren talking about, adversity, and we all have adversity in our life and have had things that happen, and she's absolutely right. How do we deal with it is what's so important. So especially young people today, they don't always know how to deal with it.
There's a sweet story that came to mind as Lauren was sharing, and there's a little boy who finds a caterpillar and he puts it in a jar and he puts leaves in it and pokes holes in it, and he waits and he waits and he waits, and of course the caterpillar builds its little cocoon, and one day the mom sees the boy take the jar and run out of the house, and she's like, I wonder what happened. He comes back 20 minutes later and he's sobbing, he's crying, and she says, what's wrong? He said, well, the caterpillar, he was ready to come out. And so I opened the jar and I started ripping open so that he could be a butterfly. But his wings didn't work and he died. And the mother said, well, that's why we need to let him get out of the cocoon himself. Because a little bit of struggle is what helps us grow. And so right now, when we feel like, but I just want to be out of the cocoon, right? I've been in COVID cocoon for 6 months. Let me out. There are good things that are coming. Let them grow. You know, in 2008, when the market went off the cliff, you know, Instagram and Uber and all of these brands were born. This is a phenomenal time to be opportunistic. This is a phenomenal time to be in your cave creating. If you've got an idea, if you wanted to write the book, if you have a musical talent, if you really want to get good at your sport. So I said, this is the best time. I have a daughter who's in high school and she's been doing Zoom practices for 6 months, just passing the volleyball against the wall. Week, she got to go into the gym. And she was like, I was on fire today. This was amazing. And I was like, see? It pays off. But we're so used to, like, I put something out there, I get automatic feedback. I put something out there, I get automatic feedback. We're trained to get that immediate gratification. And this is the gift. I think this is the gift that COVID is giving us, right? Is delay your gratification. It's coming, but focus on what it is you truly want to grow. And that butterfly is coming out of the cocoon, but just let him do it himself or herself. She's getting there.
Jen, you got a follow-up?
I think, you know, if we're talking about advice, I think that when I had my first child, I was in with a lactation specialist because I could not nurse to save my life. And I was sitting there and I was crying. And she said, honey, women of the 60s of my generation, this was her talking, did you a huge disservice. And I was like, wow, you were amazing. Like, you got it. And she goes, we told you could do it all, and you can do it all, but you can't do it all well. So you've got to figure out what all of us keep touching on is like, how do you figure out, so maybe it's, you know, and she said, my family ate fast food while I was, you know, for the first 9 months of me having a baby. That is not what our go-to was, but that is what we needed to do to make it through. We can do everything. We are all highly successful. Everyone that's on the panel, everyone that's here participating, you're here because you want to be successful. You're probably type A, you're a go-getter, you're successful in what you do. We can't do it all. We can't do it all well. So it's figuring out like what it is what can go and what can stay, and what is really important and non-negotiables for you. And then how do you ask for help, or how do you outsource parts of your life to get that balance and to do the things you really succeed and do well in.
But even in the struggles that you talk about, Kirsten, which is, I love that story. But all four of you, I want you to answer this question, because we deal with, whether we're a mother or we're not, we're always dealing with younger people too, and seeing how they grow. But it just seems also that the struggles are great, but a lot of these children don't know how to overcome them, because also the great opportunity, as you said, COVID has given all of us to be closer to family and do other things. I find that a lot of parents also take away that struggle for their child, because they don't want to see them struggle, and they don't want to see them down or upset and crying. So they do it for them. So a lot of the children don't know how to deal with that adversity, because they think it's going to be taken care of. And so your advice or your thoughts on not just parents, but even coaches sometimes. I think coaches get it a little bit more, that they'll have their athletes go through the struggles, because, as you said, they know how important that is for them to be successful. Of course, as Nina knows, Coach Wooden always said, success is peace of mind, knowing you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. That's what success is, knowing that you did your best, not winning, not losing. He didn't talk about winning. He talked about your success in doing your best. But sometimes kids can't do their best because that struggle is taken away from them. So, Nina, go ahead.
I think I got your question. I think collaboration is key. And for everyone's children, whether it's, or you're a coach and it's your player, or you're a teacher, it's your student and it's your child, each child or young person is going to handle their, they're going to make their different choices. They're going to handle stress differently. And as athletes, we have all had to deal with teammates, and maybe you could yell at one teammate and tell her to get a little more pep in her step. But if you yelled at another teammate, she might go cry in the locker room, and that's not good. We don't want that. So just learning how to just understand, really listen to and hear the needs, and rather than doing for your child or your young person, you collaborate with them and figure out what it is that you can do to assist them in achieving their goals or in solving their problems. And I think that that's really important, just the individual approach to the person.
No, absolutely. Kirsten?
Say progress over perfection. And with all of us type A people, right? We want to do it, and we want to do it right. And then how do we parent and how do we coach? We have high expectations and we hold the bar high. But if we can, which is not a bad thing, but we also want to teach them that you've got to get addicted to learning, right? I'm sure there were a lot of losses Lauren had, or Nina had, or Jen had swimming, that's what put the fire in your belly. So I remember my junior year, I went 32-1 on the basketball court. I can't tell you about the state championships I won, but I can tell you about that game we lost, right? With 5 minutes on the clock. And so it's that struggle, which is what really teaches us. And when we take away the struggle for them, and particularly when they're still with us, right? If you're a parent at home, if you're taking away their struggle, you're not giving them the gift of learning. I have my podcast with Susie Walton. She's a wonderful family coach, and she says, if you're a perfect parent and you never make mistakes at once, just to let them know that it's okay to make a mistake, right? So it's all about owning, gosh, kids, I did that wrong. Or, gosh, teammate, I did that wrong. And it's okay. And the more they get comfortable with saying, I made a mistake, what can we learn from that? What am I going to do different? How am I going to grow through this? Because that's what's going to put you ultimately in the direction of where you want to be.
I think adults need that lesson though too, right? It's like socially unacceptable to be wrong as an adult or take ownership of things as an adult. I think one thing I would say, especially in the social media culture that we live in, that perfect Instagram personality that you're following, he, she, they are not perfect. They've had struggles. And I hope more people that are on those platforms will begin to show those struggles. I try and talk about so I have Thankful Thursday now. Every Thursday I try and no matter what, I try and find something that I'm thankful for. And it can be Wednesday night and I'm like, shoot, I got to think of something for tomorrow. But I force myself to be thankful, because I think when you can be thankful, then it gives you an opportunity to reflect on things that went well, things that didn't go well, but, realize that, like Kristen was saying, it's about progress, not perfection. And so for all those kids out there, or teenagers, or early 20s or 30s, that person that you follow on Instagram that you want to be just like, they didn't get to where they are without some kind of struggle. And if you are struggling, it just means that you're not there yet, and that's okay. And there's so much power in the journey. I ended the Olympics with a medal, which was great, but the best thing I got out of my journey were the friendships I made. I got a best friend who's like a sister to me, who can read my mind, and that is more valuable than any win that I could ever ask for in my life. So,
yeah.
I think Glennon Doyle is the one who said something, and I'm going to quote her wrong, but basically our job as parents is to not take care of things for our kids. It's to basically send them into the fire and tell them, you can do this, you're going to grow from this. And I believe that you're strong enough to handle that. I think we all are strong enough to handle it, but we sometimes need help. And I think that the strength that we have and the camaraderie we have, I think that getting back to one of the key points here is that there is a lot of people that are going through a lot of really big things. And maybe you'll look back on them and realize that they weren't as big as you thought they were, but when you're in them, it feels huge and it feels insurmountable. And I think the one thing is just continue to reach out for help for those insurmountable things. And I agree, social media is such, because you look around and you're sitting here going, I'm so bored and I'm stuck and I'm not getting anything accomplished and COVID's terrible and all these things. And I look on social media and like, all my friends are having a great time and I'm the only one doing this. It's so impossibly not true. But making sure that there are resources, there's, phone numbers, there's resource, school counselor, there's your college counselor, those to help you with these things that feel in every here help continue to build up women and see us all success.
Well, just to tie everything together, and you guys have been unbelievable and appreciate all your time, but because this is such an important issue, mental and physical wellness, and sometimes we don't talk about it or we don't know how to talk about it, but it is being exposed more and more because we're seeing that people are struggling so much, and especially with the pandemic and being isolated, a lot of people, it's so important to have your voices heard. So just to kind of your final thoughts to share about the future and how to continue to have people cope with this constant change in today's society. Kristen, why don't you start off?
Yeah, I think it summarizes everything we've said, which is, focus on yourself, have a plan, have something that you're creating. And even if it's small, I heard a story the other day about a girl had gone off to college and she was basically told once she got into the dorm room, she had to close the door and she wasn't allowed to go meet anybody. And it was causing tremendous anxiety, as you can imagine. So focus on what you can control. Like there are some things that it's the most bizarre situation, like that you would be go off to college and all of a sudden be told that you can't talk to anybody or see anybody, and good luck, have a lot of fun, right? So what in that situation can I do? Is there somebody that I can reach out to? Is there Zooming with somebody else? But come up with a plan of something that you can do every day that's going to help yourself from an exercise standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a connection standpoint. We women are social connectors. We love interaction. So find, I'm sure you've got your tribe. I call it your tribe of 5. Who are those 5 people that are inspiring you? Maybe you don't even know them, but people that you listen to, podcasts you listen to, people you look up to that are sending you messages. When you listen to Thankful Thursday from Lauren, who totally put you on fire, then you're, okay, today I'm going to go do this one thing that I thought was impossible for me to do. That's what gives you that pep in your step the first thing you get out of bed and gets you going and get you focused on what it is you can create.
I would say, you have to remember to take care of your physical health. It can be really easy to just stop doing the basic things that you should do, like drink water. Like staying hydrated does amazing things, like not going to bed at 2:00 in the morning because you can. I don't know. I recently joined TikTok and it's been the worst thing I've ever done. And there's a little person that tells you to stop scrolling and go to bed, which I'm always like, you don't know my life. But it's so important to still have a bit of a routine. And so I've tried to set a bedtime for myself because so many things feel so much more manageable when you've had a good night's rest and you're hydrated and you're fueling your body well. So I would say just don't forget to take care of the basic needs that normally we focus on that we don't because quarantine. So I'm going to eat this entire bag of popcorn, which I know I shouldn't do.
The fundamentals.
Exactly.
Fundamentals.
Nina?
I obviously agree with everything that you lovely women have said thus far. I also think relishing in very small victories, very small, because we can all find joy through celebration. I ordered Starbucks this morning and that started me off in the right mindset, is a pumpkin spice latte. And I'm I'm ready to tackle the day. And I just want to get back to social media. I just have one final thought about that because it's so prevalent, especially with our young people. Like Lauren was saying, there are people who on social media, they look like they're living these great lives, and that's okay. It's fun to look at people doing great things. So we can choose to look at what they're doing, pay attention to what they're doing, get insight, get inspiration from that. If that's what you want, for your life, then it's okay to look up to somebody and take from what they have to give so that you can grow personally. And also, if it's not suiting you and it's not making you feel good or motivating you in a positive way, then unfollow. So just try to create a space where you can be happy, and if it's not serving you and it's not suiting you and it's only stressing you out and draining you, we don't need any extra draining things, then let's phase it out of our lives at this point.
Well, it's been incredible this afternoon listening to all of you. All great advice and interesting stories, and a subject too that social media that we touched upon, and hopefully our next panel that we can all get together, that we dwell into a little bit more of social media and what it has done with our mental and physical wellness. But it truly has been an honor. You all are amazing women, and this really is such an incredibly important and unspoken topic. And so we hope that all of you that have participated will feel encouraged and inspired to continue or start to take care of yourself. So we'll have some resources for your panelists, for our panelists, available to all of you that have been listening. So we appreciate it. And thank you so much, ladies, and want to wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Bye. What an incredible first day it's been with some amazing and inspiring women. I'm so excited about our featured speaker today, Brandi Chastain, two-time FIFA Women's World Cup champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist, a mom, a coach, a broadcaster. Well, there's nothing you can't do. This woman is amazing. Welcome, Brandi.
Well, thank you very much, Ann. It's so nice to be with you. As always, it is my pleasure.
It always is. And it's so good to see you. How have you been? What have you been doing? Where are you? This pandemic has just hit all of us, certainly. But
yeah.
How are you staying busy and safe? And so many questions.
I actually have taken on a new job in tech, and if you can believe this is like, I'm totally trying to debunk the you can't teach old dogs new tricks.
Right.
So I have been having my head spinning for the last 2 months, and I'm working with a company by the name of City Cheers, and we are the contactless pay solution for restaurants and bars, and hopefully we will take over that space, not just in this time of pandemic during COVID, but also as a wave of the future, because there's no reason for any of us to expose any personal information to the world, and when we can have it inside of our phones and have it be secure and safe and actually make the evening more efficient and enjoyable. So I have to tell you, I'm very blessed, Ann, because I've had some wonderful people in my life like yourself, Julie Foudy, Mia Hamm, and the rest of the 99ers. And, you know, people outside now I've found in this tech world have great personalities and wonderful stories. So I'm learning something new, and I'm embracing the opportunity for growth and success in a new place.
Well, you're wearing so many hats, and who would have thought when you were a little girl? And talk about that as far as soccer, how it has impacted your life. But when you first started, who did influence you to play soccer? And not only when you started playing soccer at such a young age, what the differences also are today for young girls?
Well, I think number one, I feel like my life has just been blessed with great people. And my parents are the first two who really inspired me in so many ways, whether that was to feel supported all the time, no matter what it was that I was trying, whether it was, climbing to the top of the tree in front of my house, or, building a skateboard obstacle course on the sidewalk and jumping over things and falling down. And then when soccer came to my neighborhood, they willingly, without knowing anything about the sport, signed me up and became my biggest supporters and my coach. So my parents obviously were very critical in my development. And I think not only in my physical development as an athlete, but also in the psychological and mental health space, which was, when things got tough, they always encouraged me to take that as an opportunity and to go back out there and do my best. And so my mom was exceptional in this area, and I wish you had known her in a way that as a friend, because you would have loved her as a friend, but also as you would see why as a mentor she just outshined everybody else for me, because she took on much like I'm doing myself now. She took on an opportunity to work in the tech space as in recruitment of workers for folks, and she became a vice president and wore a suit to work. And she showed me that working with IBM and HP, she didn't know much about that, but she was willing to find yeses and find solutions to problems. And so for me, I think what she gave me as a mother and what I learned in soccer is now really benefiting me in the business space. Because yeah, there's going to be problems, and yes, you're going to lose the ball, and yes, you might give up a goal, but what does that mean? That means that you're just going to go out there and you're going to try harder, you're going to work with your teammates, and you're going to find solutions.
Well, to have somebody like that in your life, like your mom, to have a role model, and to be able to let you go through the struggles, saying that those are opportunities that you have to understand how to fight adversity. So do you see that with the young athletes today, the young girls, as far as playing not just any sport, but soccer in particular?
I find this generation to be very interesting, because I say that because technology, they have so much technology in their lives, and things are a little bit easier in terms of accessing information, right? And so I feel that sometimes when they don't like what the outcome is, they just say, I'm not going to do it. I'll move to the next thing. And so I'm trying to create discomfort, and I'm trying to disrupt their comfort zones so that they can experience the joy of overcoming a problem. And when something does come up, I'm trying my best. And I think in my parenting as well, and as being a mom yourself, that it's easy to sometimes just want to give the solutions because you want to see them successful, or you want to see them happy, or you don't want to see them hurting. But I have learned the hard way that that's not really the way to help them thrive. I'm just trying to give these kids the opportunities that I think will present themselves in much harsher ways later in life, so that they'll be prepared to say, oh, I got this, no problem. When you don't have technology in front of your face, it's very easy then to be engaged with the person next to you. So I think that is something that I try again to stress with my players, which is, you need your access to your online friends, no problem, but you also need to be present in where you are and in the moment. And we had lots of exercise in person-to-person contact, which will never go away. Hopefully, gosh, I'm knocking on wood that it doesn't, because I think it's one of the greatest gifts of life to have the interaction with your teammates. And I'll give you a perfect example of hardship or a problem and finding the solution together. In 1999, in the Rose Bowl, we were playing China for the World Cup final. And when we got there, we drove the bus down the big tunnel and right next to where the locker room was, and we got off, and of course we're all so excited. I mean, gosh, if you took our pulse, it was probably up into the 200s, right? And we come to find out, once we've settled into the locker room, that the game prior to us has now finished in a tie. And so that meant that we weren't able to get onto the field for warm-up. So now we've been presented a problem. This is the biggest game of your life, and now you don't get to go out onto the field. And so what do? Julie Foudy, of course, she's always leading in the good trouble, right? In the good trouble, I like to call it. Her good trouble was that she would turn up the music and get in your face and dance like crazy. And then next thing you know, the whole locker room is dancing. And then we say, okay, well, it's time that we would normally start the warm-up, so we'll run in a circle in the locker room. And then we ran up the hill where the bus came down, and we kicked the ball against the wall. And so, these are opportunities where in positive environments and positive teams and positive relationships, solutions come fairly easily. Because we don't let each other get down. We don't let each other let the negative things come in. You know, the filter that we have can be as open or as closed as we want, and that's up to us. The relationships that teams build gives us individuals opportunities to understand our power and our impact on other people, and also allow us to see that being open and vulnerable is okay, and that we need that in our life to be successful.
When did you understand, you and your teammates, the impact in beating China for the World Cup? The impact that you had not only on the fans that were there, because people stayed, honestly, for hours afterwards,
yeah,
but the impact on this nation for this women's soccer team and what you had done to get there and then to beat China and win the World Cup. Did you understand the impact that you guys would make?
I'm kind of chuckling because I'd like to believe that we had some idea because of all the precluding activity we had, but I'm going to be honest and say, no way in hell did we know that it was going to turn out like this. No, I mean, and I say that because we had been so optimistic, and we had been so hopeful, and our dreams were that we would host this massive women's World Cup and that it would turn out something like this. But no way to imagine a full house at the Rose Bowl, 90,000 plus people, 40 million plus people around the world watching. And then not just that, but to have the social impact of how it touched young girls in communities that were not involved in soccer. I remember going with the USOC as an athlete ambassador to one of the Dakotas, and we did a clinic and just, talking about the numbers. And they said prior to 1999, we had 100 or so girls playing and signed up for soccer. And after 1999, we had 10,000 girls sign up. Like,
wow,
that's pretty shocking. So I'd say that we knew that we were rowing the boat in the right direction, and we had lots of advocates, and we had a great Women's World Cup committee doing so much work behind the scenes to make this happen. I mean, I have to give a shout out to Marla Messing and Donna De Verona specifically, because they believed in us, and they said, we are willing to put ourselves out there, and we're gonna do this. And we all went, okay, sure we are, let's go. And we'll do it. And so we did. And so I think, the Rose Bowl as the backdrop to the most inspirational Women's World Cup of all times, even though 2015 was amazing when the U.S. won it the next time since 99, and then again in 2019, again in France.
It was on the United States soil.
Yeah, and in a stadium that values sports as it does, not just a football, soccer stadium, but as this sporting history, this cauldron of history for the U.S. So it was remarkable.
So take us through what happened in the game, in the sense of it's tied, the motivation, what the coach says, and how you end up kicking the last shot, but even the lead up to playing China, because you had played them before, and because there's so many other competitions that people don't get to see and what happened beforehand. But just take us through that, and then how you got to be the kicker at the end.
Well, playing China was always a great opportunity, because I always, as a competitor, and I'm going to guess that you probably are the same way. When I hear someone say, "Oh, the best player isn't playing today," and someone says, "Oh, great, we're going to win," and I'm thinking, that's kind of a bummer, because don't you want to play the best at their best in the most incredible moment, right? Then your true mettle and whether or not you've really been pushed to the max. And so playing China was phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It was phenomenal for the fans. It was phenomenal for the players. It was phenomenal for the coaches, because there's that tactical decision-making things that the coaches have to do. And I thought there was one aspect of the leading up to the World Cup, that final, that was really interesting, in that all of our practices were open to the public. And China could come and sit and watch our practice. Norway could come and sit and watch our practice, just like you and Drew could have come and watched our practice. And so when we got into this game, and as you said, we've got the best against the best, and the game is back and forth. And I really just watched it for the first time about 6 months ago, where I sat down from front to back and watched. And that was an intense game, super action-packed, high intensity, fast as it could be. And honestly, I don't remember it like that. Maybe because I was so exhausted by the time it was over, I didn't have a chance to think about it. But it was really a great battle between two exceptional teams. And then we get to this 0-0 tie. Now, I want to talk about the overtime, Anne, because I think this is probably one of the most exciting sports moments that has been overlooked. And that is, in overtime in the World Cup, at that time, it was golden goal, which meant if a goal was scored, the game would be over. China now has a corner kick. Michelle, I believe at that point, had been already knocked out of the game. And she and I were the two mostly responsible for winning air duels and protecting as the ball came crossed in. And so we don't have that asset, and the ball gets crossed in, and China heads the ball, and it's coming back across the goal. And I see Brianna scurry, because I turned to look, and I see her diving, and she had super long arms and really long, big hands. And she could get to just about anything, and it went right past her fingertips. And it's going into the goal. And now it's like, you can feel this collective, air being sucked out of the stadium by the fans. And there's little Christine Lilly. I say little because she was probably 5'3", and her job is to protect that part of the goal so Brianna could go out and make a play. And she jumps up and she heads the ball out of the goal. I clear it away, and the game goes on. And nobody stops to be like high fives or whatever, because the game is going on. But that moment saved the World Cup. And I think for the casual fan, they may not have really understood the gravity of that moment. So I have to give big props to Christine Lilly for doing a job that for most of her career in that same position, she could have gotten tired of it and said, you know what, I see danger somewhere else. And she could have left her responsibility and the game would have ended. But she understood her role and the responsibility of being in that role. And so that's a good reminder to everybody that the details in life matter. No matter how little they are, they matter, because that one time she needed to be there, and she did, and she saved that World Cup.
Your preparation for it, because you may not think
Yes.
that is as important as you think. And
Yes.
in a game, if something happens early in the game or in the middle of the game, people, like in basketball, they remember the free throws you missed or the layup you missed at the end of the game. But they don't talk about the things that happen in the middle of the game. And just like what you were saying on this play was so important.
Yes, it was so important. It's so important, which then gave us obviously a chance to go to the penalty kicks, which you asked about in terms of, so how
are you all picked? Who decides who's going where and why?
Yeah. Lauren Gregg, our assistant coach, and Tony DeChico kind of circled around and spoke to the players intermittently. And Lauren came over and asked me, hey, do you want to take a penalty? And I thought it was kind of a weird question, to be honest, since I would have taken a penalty kick in the game. And so I said, yes, of course, I do. And she goes, okay, no problem. And she left. Continue getting a drink. And then all of a sudden, Tony comes over. And Tony, Tony, he was such a gem of a person, just such a great player's coach. You could have a great conversation with him about your family, about soccer, about the mistakes you made. And he would make you feel good all the time. So he came over and he's like, so I want you to take a penalty. And I'm like, yeah, Lauren and I talked about it, no problem. He goes, okay. And you know that Roadrunner cartoon character that would take off and then leave this big cloud of dust behind him? And have that image in your head when I say, he kind of patted me on the shoulder and he goes, okay, you're going to take it with your left foot. And then he ran away. Big dust cloud, right? And I say that because I wouldn't have taken it with my left foot. And I never had taken one with my left foot.
Which you're right.
In a game. And I'm left-footed and right-footed, to be honest with you. I'm very comfortable both ways, but penalty kicks are kind of like free throws, right? You've probably made a layup with your left hand. You've made a layup with your right hand. You've probably had to change from one hand to the other, but maybe in a time when you have a choice, you naturally would go to the other side. And so I think I was so exhausted, Anne, that I just was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And luckily spent no time thinking about it until people started bringing it up, like, oh, and you took that left foot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did. I took that left footed. But, you know, I honestly think I was in kind of this state of being in the zone, which is you don't let other things on the outside interfere with the task at hand. And so once I knew that I was taking with my left foot, I didn't even know what number I was in the order. And we went out to the middle of the field and I thought, I shouldn't ask anybody that because I don't want to interrupt anybody's thought process. I'll wait until they tell me it's my turn to go. And it turned out I was last, so I got to figure that out the easy way.
It was amazing. And talk about the difference, too, between the World Cup and the Olympics.
To be a representative of your country always is an incredible gift. But to be in the Olympics was another level because women's soccer had just not been broadcast on a big scale and been in big environments before. You know, we had been in the World Cup, but not in a way like the Olympics. And so with the world looking at you, it gave a different sense to what it meant to be an American athlete because you were there with everybody else. And so to be in the Olympic Village, to walk I like to call the Walk of Champions, right? The opening ceremony, to be there with the best of the world had to offer in sports was incredible. But as a soccer player, to play in the World Cup, it's the world, everybody, you know, every soccer player wants to play in the World Cup. It's the ultimate achievement to be a World Cup champion in your respective sport. And as the Olympics, it only comes around every 4 years, and you never know if you're going to get another chance. So the difference is to be amongst your colleagues and peers of athletes is incredible in the Olympics, but to be on the final platform and be the champion of the world in your respective sport, you know, that's a totally different game.
Talk about that transition as far as now 2015 and the World Cup being won by the United States and the difference between what was going on with what you guys were trying to do and then 2015 with equal pay and just there seemed to be a different kind of voice in 2015, and that's how many years ago now? 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So talk about the difference on that.
Well, you know, I think, gosh, you have to say, like, when I hear, you know, equal pay and let's, you know, I pay her what she deserves, you know, and I hear these stands chanting and I'm thinking, thank goodness everybody now gets it and everybody's embraced it. But that has been going on for a long time, as you know, Anne. This is not a new conversation. And I think back in 2015 and 2019, then, you know, I'm exhausted by this conversation. But I'm also incredibly hopeful at the same time, right? I'm uplifted and I'm exhausted because we don't need to have this conversation anymore. And I feel like, I feel fortunate that there was some women with some very big voices and some very strong and courageous hearts that said, we will stand out and we will share this mantra of equal pay because it's the right thing. And it's not just for us 24 players, it's for every young woman out there, whether she be in soccer or she, put on a business suit or she teaches as a professor or she's a banker. It doesn't matter. These standards should be upheld for everybody. So, it was a different voice, a different time. I would say the 99 team and the distance between that 2015 team felt like a long way apart. But I think with this messaging, we've kind of found a way back together, and that we are in solidarity for the right reasons, and hoping and still working diligently so in the direction of equal pay and equality.
Well, I think, Brandy, what you've shown to everybody that's listening, that you still have to continue to have courage. You have to compete at every level and be there when you're needed. Don't listen to the noise. And certainly you continue to fight, and you are an unbelievable role model to so many people. And the impact that you make on lives has been great. And so we are very fortunate that the Rose Bowl Institute Women's Empowerment Symposium, the second one, day one, that you are a number one speaker. So we can't thank you enough.
It is my great honor and pleasure. And Anne, as always, I am inspired by you and other women who take the lead and say, I will find my yes, and lead other women to do the same. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody at the Rose Bowl for all that they do, because they are changing the lives of young men and women in our communities. And I couldn't be any more grateful.
Thanks, Brandy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Remember, this is only day one. We've got 2 more days to go. But I am so motivated by the panels of the women that we've had a chance to listen to today. Brandy Chastain was amazing, and all these other women are too. Not only being motivated, they have broken so many barriers. They are doing it in a man's world, as you can too. So we know that we've got 2 more days. We can't thank you enough for being here today and joining us. Have a great evening.
What an amazing first day to kick things off. We hope you had as much fun as we did, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Don't forget to fill out the brief survey that you will receive by email, or use the link in the chat. Thank you again, and we will see you tomorrow.
Sports and entertainment are unifiers of people, and the Rose Bowl Institute celebrates the power of sports to unite people everywhere. Since 1922, over 100 million fans have witnessed unforgettable moments unlike any other venue in the world. The global recognition of the Rose Bowl Stadium will bring people together to learn, be inspired, and explore discussions that positively impact society, showcasing the qualities these events have stood for over the past near century. Now, America's Stadium is the flashpoint to inspire and to educate the next generation of youth, community, and the country. This is the Rose Bowl Institute.